Hey friends, thanks for joining me for another Couch Convo. I have an opening discussion for you, which is when you think of the word kingdom, what comes to your mind? What images pop into your head? Go ahead and take a few moments to talk about that, and when you're done, I'll be right here. When we think of kingdoms, we typically think of things like knights and castles and horses and, well, of course, kings. If you've been following us through the Lord's Prayer, we've been learning about the prayer that Jesus himself taught us to pray. Jesus teaches us first to say, "Our Father, who art in heaven." He teaches us to call God our Father as one who dearly loves us. Then he teaches us to pray, "Hallowed be thy name." And so we're asking God to help us keep God's name holy or sacred in our lives. But then Jesus tells us to say, "Thy kingdom come." Now, one thing we know about a kingdom is that a kingdom has to have a king. And in Jesus' kingdom, Jesus is king. But Jesus' kingdom doesn't deal with horses and knights and castles and stuff like that. Jesus' kingdom primarily is one of love. First, a love for God and a love for others. So when we're saying, "Thy kingdom come," we're actually asking Jesus to help us bring his kingdom here to earth. Help us to show his kingdom through our words and through our actions. I have another discussion question for you. Can you think about your greatest family trip or the greatest family vacation that you went on? Discuss some of the things you did and some of the things you got to experience, and I'll be right here when you're done. Hopefully you had some great discussion about those family experiences. I bet when you were there, you took pictures of some of the things that you did, and I bet you maybe even bought some souvenirs and brought them back. Now, you brought them back to remember your experience, but I bet you did it so you could also show other people what you experienced. That's just like praying, "Thy kingdom come," in the Lord's Prayer. We're asking God to help us to show his kingdom by our actions, to be a kind friend, to do good things to those around us, to be a good listener, to offer words of help and advice whenever they're asked for. You know, there are lots of ways to bring God's kingdom to earth, and most of it is just by doing the things that God shows us, that Jesus shows us in the Bible. As Christians, we believe that Jesus will come back to earth and take us to live with him forever in heaven. You see, heaven is God's perfect and holy kingdom. The Bible tells us that there's no sin, that there's no tears, that there's no pain, that there's only good and awesome things in heaven. You see, heaven is going to be greater than anything that we could ever experience here on earth. And so whenever we pray, "Thy kingdom come," we're also telling God, we want your kingdom to come quickly so that we can experience the joy of being with you forever in heaven. For our last discussion with those around you, I'd like you to maybe address two questions. One, what is one way that you can show God's kingdom to others here on earth? Maybe by your words or maybe by your actions. The other thing I'd like you to do is just talk about what most excites you about heaven. What most excites you about being with Jesus forever in his presence? That's all for today's Couch Convo. We'll see you next time, friends. Bye-bye.